All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me for class for today. My name is Charlotte Scheid, and I'm one of the Giant Company dietitians. So for this class series for Produce Spotlight, we are focusing all on apples and pumpkins, which is perfect for this time of year. I don't know about you, but I know in our house we are eating such a ton of apples at the moment. So the class series features apples and pumpkins, but we're going to be talking all about apples today, which I'm sure with the fall weather, there's a lot of apple picking going on and just, again, a variety of apples. So I'm sure all of you are also enjoying apples this time of year. So that is sort of what we're going to be talking about today. But the first thing I want to do is just do some fun true or false questions about apples, just to test your knowledge. So our first true or false question is, and let me pull this up in the poll. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So the first one is Pennsylvania ranks fourth in the nation for apple production. So true or false? Give everybody a couple seconds to answer that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. All right, so it looks like the majority of you did say true and some said false. So let's see what the answer is. So this one is true. So there's a lot of apple production going on. I know for those of you who probably live in Pennsylvania, like myself, a lot of apple varieties, many different places, which is super exciting this time of year, especially because you can go apple picking. All right, here's our next one. So there are 3,500 varieties of apples that are grown worldwide. Here we go. So again, 3,500 varieties of apples grown worldwide. Which is definitely a lot of apple varieties. All right, so I'll go ahead and end the poll. Let's see what everybody said. All right. All right, so it looks like majority of you said true, and then some said false. Let's see what the answer is. All right, so this one is false because there's actually over 7,500 varieties of apples grown worldwide, which I didn't even know that before until I researched it, but was blown away. So a lot of great apple varieties to choose from. All right, our next one, there are over 100 types of apples grown in Pennsylvania. All right, so go ahead and answer that question. So again, 100 types of apples grown in Pennsylvania. All right. Poll. Let's go ahead and share the results. So for the majority of you said true. And so let's see what the answer is. So this one is true. So probably again, if you live in Pennsylvania, you know that there are a variety of different types of apples here. All right, so last one. All right. So apples are not a good source of vitamin C. This might be a little bit too easy of a of a question, but let's see what you say. So again, apples are not a good source of vitamin C. So we know that vitamin C, especially important for our immune health. All right, so go ahead and end the poll. Looks like I didn't fool too many of you. So majority said false. Again, some said true. So let's see what the answer is. So this one is false. So apples are a great source of vitamin C. So again, especially with the germ season and all that great stuff, this time of year, definitely beneficial for immune health, but apples are a great source of vitamin C among the different nutritional benefits that we'll talk about in a couple slides. So thanks everybody for answering those fun true or false questions. All right, and I promise this is my last poll because I want to hear from all of you. What is your favorite type of apple? So I know for myself, and let me pull up this one. Again, this will be our last one. So your favorite type of apple. So there are a variety of different apples. So I know for myself, in our house, we love a Honey Crisp apple. Especially my daughters really love that. But different types or different categories. You have your sweet, which is the Fuji, Gala, Honey Crisp, Golden Delicious. You have kind of your tart ones that are more used for baking, but like Granny Smith, Cortland, Pink Lady. And then we also have ones that are a little bit more balanced, kind of like a sweet tart. So we have Ambrosia, Empire, and Macintosh. All right, so it looks like a lot of you are kind of each of these. So it looks like a lot of you do like sweet, but a lot of you like, well, there's a lot of you that like them all, but then some balance and some tart, but a good number of you like the sweet, which I can appreciate because I definitely like those Honey Crisp apples. More so just like as a snack, but we're thinking about apples, of course, there's many different types of varieties, but these are kind of the main ones, especially that we have in store. But definitely in our house, Honey Crisp. So a lot of different varieties to choose from. So these are the nutritional benefits of apples. So for about one medium 7-ounce apple, so you can see kind of right here, has around 100 calories, is a great source of fiber, which we know is beneficial for our gut health, heart health. So 5 grams of fiber, which also has been shown to lower our risk for heart disease. Pectin is a prebiotic, which is really beneficial for gut health. So prebiotics help to feed the probiotics in our gut, that healthy bacteria. So really good for gut health. Again, boost immune system, so a great source of vitamin C. So one apple provides around about 10% of the daily value that we need for vitamin C. May help to reduce inflammation, a lot of antioxidants, and then polyphenols as well, which has been shown to be helpful with a variety of different conditions, like lowering the risk of type 2 diabetes and then cancer. But those are just a few of the many different types of nutritional benefits, but definitely the vitamin C, a good source of fiber. So it's always great, especially if you include it in a snack. It's just an easy way to do that. So how to choose apples. So the first one, we want the color. If you ever, well, anytime you're at like a farmer's market store, so we want the color to be a rich color, kind of a consistent color, which indicates ripeness. If it has any type of like brown spots or doesn't look like it has a rich color, probably, put that one to the side. The skin, we want it to have a smooth and shiny skin. If it has any like wrinkles or bruising or soft spots, it usually means it is already it's kind of like an older apple, more mature. But definitely we don't want any of those wrinkles, smooth and shiny skin. For size, we want it to be heavy for size. You can say this one I can tell is heavier. It tends to be juicier. We want a firmness. We want it to feel firm and solid, no mushy spots or, real softness. Usually means that it's not a very good apple. And then for smell, so this has kind of like a sweet, fragrant aroma. And if it doesn't have any smell, it might indicate that it's not ripe. If it has like a sour smell, you obviously, again, want to put that one to the side. So if you're trying to choose apples in the store, that ones that you can purchase kind of alone by themselves, definitely take these tips into consideration to find a really delicious apple. And for storage and cleaning, of course, anytime we are eating an apple right before you're using it, you want to rinse it. Help if there's any bacteria or whatnot on the apple, helps to get that off. So we want to rinse our apples. If you do rinse the apples, you always want to eat or put them in the refrigerator soon after washing to prevent excess moisture from causing mold. In terms of storage, we want to store our apples, or apples stay freshest when it's stored in a cool, humid environment. In the refrigerator, if you have a crisp drawer, you can put it in a perforated plastic bag. You just want kind of that air circulating around it. Or you can also put in a loosely covered container to kind of maintain that humidity. And on the counter, I know for our apples, we usually store them on the counter. They can store for up to a week, but they tend to lose their crispness faster. Usually in our house, that's not really an issue because we're eating them very fast. Normally the day we get them, we're eating them. So normally on the counter, they stay pretty well for like 1 to 3 days. But after that, they kind of, get a little bit soft and you can tell they're not as fresh, don't have as much of a crisp texture when you eat them. So you're thinking about storage and cleaning, think about these tips. I also wanted to mention this one too. So obviously there's enzymatic browning. So I just wanted to include this for some prevention of it. So we know that enzymatic browning, which happens to a lot of different produce items, but for apples, so it's a chemical reaction that occurs when the fruit is exposed to oxygen after being cut or bruised, so it tends to turn brown. So if you're using apples on like a charcuterie board, or like you want them not to turn brown, if you're kind of prepping something ahead of time. You don't want them to turn brown. These are just some tips on how to do that. You can do some lemon juice. So a little bit of lemon juice and water, soak for 3 to 5 minutes. You can drain and rinse them. You can even put them in salt water. And I know in the past someone asked, does the apple then kind of taste salty? And I've done this one and I don't think it usually tastes too salty, but it's just kind of another strategy to prevent that enzymatic browning. Then you could also do honey water as well. So if you're kind of prepping apples ahead of time, you don't want them to turn brown. These are just some ways to help with that enzymatic browning, so prevention of that. So these are some culinary uses of apples, which you would think, apples, maybe put them in a pie, use them as a snack, but there's actually many different types of ways to use apples, which is again super exciting for this time of year because of all the varieties and they're so fresh. So the first one, I know for myself, I love to make an apple slaw. I believe there's a recipe on our Savory Magazine website database too, which is super delicious. But slaw, like a sweet slaw, which is also good for, I think, the holiday season, but it's just apples, or like grated apples mixed with cabbage. You can make or have a certain type of dressing on the slaw. You can, of course, incorporate into a salad. So you can toss apples with mixed greens and nuts and cheese. You can roast apples. So I have a recipe and a couple slides on that. So you can roast it with pork or chicken. You can, of course, blend it into soup. Butternut squash is really popular this time of year because butternut squash is also in season. You can chop up the apples and create apple chips in the oven. So when they cool down, you can just sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on there. You can make apple nachos, which is one of my daughter's favorites. So I've just chop up the apples. You can kind of like drizzle some peanut butter on it or, whatever that you would like. You can do a little chocolate chip, nuts, whatever that you would like, but just makes for a nice afternoon snack, afternoon pick-me-up, especially for kids. You can incorporate it into a fruit kebab. So you can put on a stick a little bit of apples, grapes, and cheese. Makes for a nice snack. You can also incorporate into a grilled cheese. That's another one of my favorites, which is super delicious. You can incorporate into muffins and cake, bread, and biscuits. We'll be making a biscuit recipe at the end, which is super delicious. I think a little bit of a unique way to use apples as well. Of course, you can use them in pies, which is popular around the holidays. You can chop up apples, put them in oatmeal or yogurt parfait. You can, of course, make apple butter or applesauce, which again, if apples are in season, you can usually buy a lot of them for cheaper and you can make that applesauce, apple butter. You can make them into a smoothie and you can do an apple infused water, which is if you put in some apple slices into water and like some cinnamon sticks, it really makes a nice, nice flavored fall water, which I always like. There's also a lot of different recipes on our savory for stuffing. So you can combine apples with bread, onions, and herbs, which makes for a really nice Thanksgiving stuffing or, whatever meal that you're prepping. Again, with snacks, seems to be really popular with apples. Again, you can pair with peanut butter, even cheese, or whatnot. And then also for this time of year with the holidays approaching, even like Halloween, you can include it kind of a charcuterie board. A lot of different options for a charcuterie board, which is pretty cool. So as you can see here, apples, not just for a snack, but for a variety of different ways that you can use them. And these are some apple pairings. So these are just some pairings that taste, I think, pretty good with apples. So first being pears. A pear is a really nice combination with apples, which are in season right now. Same with cranberries for the upcoming holidays. Even bananas and grapes are a good one. For protein, there's a lot of, again, recipes on savory, recipes with apples and chicken, turkey, and pork. Great herbs and spices, thyme, rosemary, mint, and cinnamon. Even if you do like maybe apple and mint water, if we're talking about infused water, that would be a good one. And also again, with apples and peanut butter as a snack, almonds, walnuts, some goat cheese, brie or blue cheese, a lot of different cheese options with apples, which tend to go well in a salad. So when you're thinking about apples, kind of different flavor combinations or food combinations, these are some to think about. So these are some products at apples at Giant Martin's, so that you can kind of get them in a variety of different ways. Of course, you can purchase them loosely, like one at a time. But I will say in our house, especially if you have kids, or even if for yourself you have to pack a lunch, I love these individualized apple slice packets. I know in our house we use them a lot. But we have, you can do the red apples, green apples, which are nice. But you can also purchase green apple slices in a larger container. So if you want to keep them in your refrigerator and your kids come home from school or yourself come home from work, you can, take them out as you need them. And this does have a little bit of, I forget exactly what is on it, some type of citric acid or whatnot to prevent that browning, which is nice. You can also get them in a bag. So if you are making, applesauce or whatnot, you can get them at larger sizes. So that's a nice one. And also freeze-dried apples. So the one product that is my favorite is the crispy fruit, which is I always make like a trail mix with the freeze-dried apple, kind of like a harvest trail mix, which is nice. So there's a variety of different ways to, or different products for apples. But definitely if you haven't before, these apple slices, we always have those in our refrigerator, which is nice. So these are some apple recipes from Savory. So you can always view our Savory recipes online at any time, which is really nice. This is our most recent Savory magazine. So the first one I had mentioned about a great pairing for apples is chicken. So this is a skillet chicken with apples and cider. Very easy to make. It does get 3 guiding stars, which we know is our nutritional navigation program. So the more stars that a recipe gets, the more nutritionally beneficial it is. But this one has almost 40 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber. Definitely not too hard to make, but incorporates some apples and cinnamon, chicken, flour, apple cider, which I know Shayna went over in the last produce spotlight class all about apple cider, some butter, and then chives. So I like kind of a 1 skillet dish because it's very easy cleanup, but this is one option for apples. So I've made these before, which I know I keep talking about my daughters, but they always like this recipe as well. So this gets 2 guiding stars. It's a spiced oatmeal and apple bar. So we have some old-fashioned oats, flour, baking powder. We'll incorporate some ground cinnamon, whatever type of apples that you like, apple cider, a little bit of dark brown sugar, just to kind of give it maybe a little more sweetness. I think even with this one, you could probably even switch it out maybe for applesauce if you don't want, brown sugar in that. Gives it some moistness. And then again, some butter, egg, and then vanilla extract. But this one has 5 grams of protein, 3 grams of fiber, so it really makes for a nice snack. And it's I think it's really delicious. You can put it, in a pan, bake it, and then you can put it in the refrigerator and pull it out as you need it. So we talked a lot about salads and apples. So this is a apple harvest salad with feta, which incorporates a lot of the fall flavors this time of year. So walnuts, excuse me, fresh orange juice, fresh lemon juice, which will help with that enzymatic browning that is incorporated into the salad. Some Dijon mustard, olive oil, some kale, beets, apples, and then feta cheese. Just super delicious. I love a good feta cheese. So a lot of great flavors with this one. Has 9 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, and gets 2 guiding stars. So if you're looking for a salad recipe to kind of switch it up for the fall season, this is a good one. And then I had mentioned too about pork being a good pairing with apples. So I love a good sheet pan meal. So this is a sheet pan pork, apple, and arugula salad. Gets 1 guiding star. So really you put all these ingredients on the sheet pan and then bake it. So this one has 47 grams of protein per serving and then 5 grams of fiber. So you're getting a lot of great protein in this one, but especially if you have a busy night, don't have a lot of time, this is a good one. Excuse me. All right. So this is our apple recipe inspiration. So this is a little bit of a unique twist on apples and what to make. So these are apple cheddar biscuits, which are very easy to make, but really just kind of a unique thing, especially if you need a side dish for some type of meal. This is a good one. Excuse me, I'm just gonna get a drink of water quick. All right, so this is our apple cheddar biscuits, gets 1 guiding star. So this recipe, you can usually make about 8 to 10 biscuits. So the baking mix, I don't know if anybody has used a baking mix before, but basically what it is, so this is the baking mix right here, is a pre-made blend of dry ingredients, kind of used as a shortcut in baking, but it usually includes like your flour, your baking powder or soda, salt, and then sometimes that sugar or fat, but we're going to be using that in our biscuit recipe. And let's see, so we have our baking mix and we're going to be adding some whole milk, some salt, mixing that together. grating up our apple, and then folding that in as well with our cheddar cheese. And then after you bake them, you melt a little bit of butter, put some chopped chives, which the chives that I have are kind of halfway dried, so they still taste somewhat fresh. Or mean fresh, meaning like you're buying them fresh, but these are, they partially dried. We always want to keep those in the refrigerator, so we'll be using that. So you melt the butter, put some chives in, and then you brush it right on. But very easy recipe, and again, nice addition to a side dish. So these are just the directions, which I already said. So actually, let me go and preheat my oven to 425. All right, so that is heating up. So let me bring over, actually, let me just, so I already make sure I didn't miss anything. So again, we're mixing in all of our ingredients. I have my oven preheated to 425. Then we're going to be grating our apple and then folding it in to our mix with the cheddar cheese. And normally you want to bake them for about 12 minutes. All right, so let me stop sharing my screen and we will get started. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, I was going to grate first, but let me go ahead and just mix my the dry, or the baking mix, milk, and then salt. So again, I just have my baking mix right here. I'm going to put 2 cups in my bowl. Try to pour this out. All right, get a little bit more. All right, so do 1, do 2. All right. And depending on the consistency, I might add a little more, but we'll see. So we have 2 cups. We're going to do a 1/2 cup of milk. So I just have our brand whole milk right here. So do 1/2 cup, and then 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Okay. I'm just going to use my fork, just kind of mix this up a little bit. I will say maybe towards the end when I'm folding in the apples and cheddar, I may use my hands. So it makes it a little bit easier. All right, so this is coming together well. You just try to get it off the sides. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side, and we're going to grate our apple. So I'll bring my cutting board back. I have my grater right here. I did already pre-wash my apples. So you want about a cup to mix in with the baking mix. And if you want, before you grate, you can take the skin off, but you don't necessarily have to. So we're just going to grate this. Try to get towards a cup. And I will say for an apple, you normally want like the bigger holes for grate or for the grater, because if you do more of the smaller ones, the apples just kind of end up very mushy, which you can probably still add them into the baking mix, but I always do like the bigger hole for the grater. I think we may do the other apple to get to a cup. So this apple will give the biscuits a nice sweetness to them. Do one more side. I think we should be good. All right. So that looks pretty good. So that's about a cup. Put this over here. Just gonna add this. So you can see they gave kind of a nice grate. Just gonna kind of fold it in, just make sure it goes for areas. I'm also gonna put in my cheese. So the cheese that I'm using is just our brand, sharp cheddar cheese, but it's finely shredded. So we'll just put there it is. So we'll do 2/3, around 2/3 of a cup. All right. So I'll use my fork to mix it around, but then let me just sometimes using your hands is a little bit easier. We'll just mix this up. I might just add a little bit more of this baking mix, just because it's a little bit almost too wet, but the biscuits not quite be as wet. Okay. So mixing this up, but again, you can use a fork or any type of thing like that, but hand is just easier. All right. So you can see here, this is our mix. Let me go and let me just rinse off my hand. Well, actually, I'm not going to rinse off. Let me just get a paper towel. All right. So we'll move this cutting board and bring our baking sheet. So normally, again, for this recipe, you can get about 8 to 10, depending on how big you want your biscuits. So we'll do this side. So you do want to bake this for about 12 minutes at 425. My oven is almost there. And then after the 12 minutes, you want them to cool down a little bit. That's when you're going to melt your butter and then mix that with the chives. So I think I'm making my biscuits probably a little more big. So I'll probably be able to get, okay, I guess I'm making them more big than what the recipe is probably making them, but we have about 6 here. But yeah, you can do them a little bit smaller and then you can get more. Let me go ahead and rinse these off and then I'm going to bring back the finished ones. All right. All right, so I'm going to wait till my oven gets to 425 and then I'll put them in. But let me bring back the actual finished ones that I made before class. All right, so here are the finished ones that I made before class. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and melt my butter, maybe for like 30 to 40 seconds or so. Then I'm going to mix in my chives. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so again, the chives that I have are kind of a lightly dried chive. It is recommended that you do keep them in the refrigerator. You keep them fresh. So for this recipe, you do about two tablespoons. And we'll kind of mix that around, and then we'll use our brush to brush it right on. Let me check on the butter. Maybe 10 more seconds. Because you just want the butter just to be melted. You don't want it to be boiling or anything like that. Let's. All right, so that looks good. We're going to add in 2 tablespoons chives. I love the smell of chives. Tastes so good with a biscuit, recipe. Right. So go ahead and mix this around. And then I'm just going to take my brush. This is one of the best kitchen tools, I think. Use this all the time. So we're just going to just put it right on the top. And you don't have to buy the partially dried chives if you just want to do the actual fresh ones. You would just chop those up. All right, so that looks really good. Smells really delicious. All right, and so once you're done with that, especially if you're making this kind of before a meal, where did I put my basket? Here it is. So this napkin is probably a little bit too big. So this is like my bread basket. So if you're serving these for a meal, you're just gonna put them right in. You don't necessarily have to wait till like um, the butter dries or too much, but just put them right in here. Then you're ready for serving it to your guest. So here are our apple cheddar biscuits. Probably can use this napkin is probably like a little too big again for this bread basket, but so you can see here, not too hard to make, super simple ingredients. So my oven is almost ready for my next batch, but hopefully that gives everybody a wonderful idea how to use apples. All right, so I'm going to stop recording. So thank you everybody and take care.